Hi everybody, this is Brittany Kuhlman. This is my EDL 851 case study for the teacher reacts negatively to personnel evaluations. To summarize the case, we are at the deadline for teacher evaluations. Most of them were great. Ms. Stevens, however, was the exception. She had several evaluations throughout the year. Principal noted that student engagement was low. Students weren't even going through the motions if they were called upon. So they were just showing little respect for their teacher. After that observation, they did a post evaluation feedback. It did not go well. Ms. Stevens was very irritable, hostile towards any type of intervention or improvement, and just defensive overall. The principal decided that he would revisit that classroom one more time for an evaluation before submitting her final evaluation. Noticed that Ms. Stevens was having the typical issues, and ultimately did not provide her with any type of feedback just because he had nothing positive to say. So later on, when he was reflecting, he decided to recommend not to renew her contract. And Ms. Stevens was very upset about that, saying that it wasn't fair and it didn't represent her teaching. She turned around her poor rating on the principal for not giving practical solutions to any problems, and she threatened to sue the school district. So legally and ethically, Ms. Stevens did threaten to sue the school district because she doesn't think that her evaluation reflects her teaching skills. Ethically, we have the timing in the contract renewal. She was up for tenure that year. So if she was non-renewed, then obviously she would not get that tenure. But we don't have any type of breach of contract. The teacher evaluation forms, what other documentation do we have, like ethically, were those submitted in a timely manner, and did she get that feedback? So to synthesize, Ms. Stevens received a low rating on her teacher evaluation and believes that the principal never offered any practical interventions and feels the evaluation doesn't represent her as a teacher. For our missing information, people-wise, do we have other administrators that have evaluated Ms. Stevens? Have they been seeing the same exact things? What about instructional coaches? And did she have a mentor teacher? What are they seeing in her classroom? Is it the same thing? Or is it just you as the administrator? Place-wise, we don't know the demographics of the school. What is considered the year before you reach tenure is that 10 years or is it sooner? And then programs, again, the teacher evaluations, is it the same evaluation for everyone? Are we doing walkthroughs? How is that documented? The one in the case study is very vague. So is the other one vague, or do we have other comments that are being made? Do we have a mentor program, and how useful is that? And then again, how long has she been with the district? The things we know, again, Ms. Stevens has low student engagement, low classroom management, more than one negative observation, and she doesn't respond to feedback very well. What we need to know more, again, is what does the observation form look like? The final one is very vague. So is the one throughout the school year more in detail? Do we have room for comments, or is it just below average, average, and average, or above average? How many other observations were there, and what was noted on those observations? And then what feedback was given previously? If we are talking bad about her classroom management, what feedback was given to her to help that classroom management? So for our options, option one would be to do nothing. We are going to continue to move forward with the non-contract renewal for Mrs. Stevens. And we're just going to deal with the lashing back that she has. Option two would be to switch it to a contract renewal. At that point, we will be avoiding litigation. and then allow Mrs. Stevens to have her tenure. Option 3 would be allowing for a probation period with a mentor teacher, not allow tenure for that one more year, change up the evaluation form, and make sure that I, as the principal, am providing better feedback, even if there isn't anything positive to say. For our pros and our cons, option 1, the pros, we're removing a teacher with low student achievement from our district. And we are going to try and put somebody in that position that will increase student learning. The cons is there is the potential for a lawsuit because Ms. Stevens doesn't think that that evaluation was fair, and she could come back and say the principal isn't giving enough feedback to help her with her struggles. Option 2, the pros is Miss Stevens gets to keep her job, and hopefully she doesn't sue. But the con with just changing it to a renew contract to avoid litigation, we're now stuck with Miss Stevens due to tenure, and she's just going to be going through the motions. We're not going to see any improvement. Option 3, with providing a mentor program and a probation period, the pros would be Miss Stevens keeps her job. We're going to try and come up with a new evaluation system. And then we're going to increase our feedback to the staff. The cons, Mrs. Stevens could be defiant and not enjoy that as a veteran teacher. She has to have a mentor teacher and that she's on a probation period. So there could still be a potential lawsuit. For my plan, I think a combination of 2 and 3 are appropriate. So changing her evaluation to a renewal, but then manipulating that to where there's like factors that she has to achieve for the next year. Otherwise, she'll be at non-renewal. So first is communication with our superintendent and our board of education. We need to let them know, hey, this is the situation. I have a teacher that I don't want to renew. She's threatening to sue. This is what I would like to do. So I'd like to renew the contract for Mrs. Stevens. I would like to assign her a mentor teacher who's checking in on her, who she can go observe as a peer and get ideas on how to fix her struggles. I would also like to change the evaluation system to have more factors that are involved instead of just a relationship with others. What is the professional interest and attitude and teaching ability? Well, what kind of strategies was she using? What things worked and don't work? And a place for actual feedback. I would like to plan an evaluation ahead of time and meet with Mrs. Stevens so that way I know what the lesson is before I go in. So if maybe one class period the lesson doesn't go well, then I have an idea of how it was supposed to go. And I can still evaluate her on that lesson and then help her make that lesson more successful within that own class period. I would like to give feedback and interventions in a timely manner. After an evaluation, I think we should sit for a day or two and reflect, and then we can reflect together and we can go through interventions. Next, I will document everything, especially because she is on a probation period. And if you need that evidence to support your reason for the non-renewal. So after that year, if there's no change, then we would recommend her for a non-renewal. So again, to implement, I would like to meet with the superintendent and the Board of Education. I'd like for us to come up with a evaluation tool to have more measures that is more applicable towards our teachers, less harsh to look at. And then I would like to meet with Mrs. Stevens, give her her options of having a year probation with a mentoring program, and then letting her know that I would like to meet with her before and after observations for feedbacks and interventions. And then also she needs to be aware that if we do not see an improvement in student engagement, classroom management, and so forth, then that next school year she would be recommended for a non-renewal. So for the standard correlation, this assignment related to the standard by allowing me to simulate a real-life situation. This presentation has shown that I have the ability to supervise and evaluate staff as well as build capacity with my staff to find solutions to problems. This assignment was relevant to my learning because I'm pretty sure this is a type of situation that I will actually encounter. Being the supervisor and evaluating staff is a huge part of being a building administrator. And through this scenario, I was able to practice on finding a solution that would be acceptable not only to that teacher who was being felt like they were being attacked, but also for the school district. For my reflection, so far, out of all the case studies I've done in this program, I feel like this has been the most beneficial one. Um, it just seems like it's been the most practical, I guess. As a principal, I just need to make sure, one, that I'm documenting all of my evaluations, and even more than just an evaluation, just document so that way you have that trail of evidence. Um, and that includes your interventions that have been given to a teacher that is struggling. The more evidence I have, the better and easier the decision is for a non renewal. However, I need to make sure that when that first evaluation is done, if there is an area for improvement, then I capitalize on that and I get that improvement to them. So that way, when we're doing contract renewals, it's not a slap in the face for them to find out they're not being renewed. I need to provide opportunities for that improvement again, whether it be providing that mentor teacher to help them with a peer observation or just helping them with coming up with strategies, or even giving that teacher specific professional development so that way they are out there learning how to do other things. Again, as I said before, I want my staff to know that I am for them and I will do anything to help them succeed. And that's it.